Witcher book is here, with a lot of new lore, some of which contradicts what we've seen on the TV show and in the video games. So, what did we learn? Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to Deep Geek. Here we cover the world of The Witcher in full. Breakdowns, explanations and deep dives. That's as well as other great fantasy worlds like The Lord of the Rings and A Song of Ice and Fire. Welcome. Roger Sapkowski is still writing Witcher books, and the most recent, Crossroads of Ravens, published in 2024 in Polish and September 25 in English, contains a lot of additional lore about Geralt and the world of The Witcher. I've set out here 9 of those lore drops, but there are more that maybe I'll cover in a future video. Rather obviously, there are spoilers here for the book, so tread carefully. And by way of a very brief intro, the story of Crossroads of Ravens is that of a young Geralt. He is just 18 years old and out for his first season of witchering around the continent, or Cadwyn at least. He is the same character, though obviously much less experienced, and that shows in most of his interactions. He acknowledges that some of the fights he wins are more down to luck than skill. Clearly he is a lot less knowledgeable about the world and is also much less famous. So let's get on with the first reveal, which I've already hinted at, Geralt's age. We are told clearly in Crossroads of Ravens that Geralt is 18, and it is the year 1229, which means he was born in the year 1211. The short stories start a few years after this book, meaning that when he meets Yennefer for the first time, he'll be in his late 30s. The main 5-novel Witcher story arc starts with Blood of Elves around the year 1266, so Geralt was about 55, and that concludes just a couple of years later. The Witcher 3 video game, if you've played that, starts in the year 1272, and covers maybe 3 years with expansions, so the oldest Geralt we've seen so far is 64. Quite a lithe and sprightly 64-year-old, but we'll put that down to the mutagens. If you caught Vesemir in the game calling Geralt nearly 100 years old, this is a canon corrective to that. Secondly, why Roach the horse is called Roach. Yes, we know that Geralt calls all the horses he owns Roach, so he doesn't grow too attached to them, but why Roach as a name? It's a translation of a Polish word for a particularly small fish, which is quite random when you think about it. But here we get an idea of why he chose Roach. Basically, it's because he laughed at a horse dealer's rather weak joke. We read this: the horse dealer is speaking and trying to sell him a more expensive horse. But what is this? A witcher on a mare, not a stallion? It's somehow dishonourable. What do you say? That's your least concern? Ha! The customer is always right. He wants a mare, he gets a mare. But with horses, ha, my Lord Witcher, it's like it is with fish. I'm offering you these jennets like lusty pike, and you've chosen a little roach. What are you laughing about? Did I say something comical? The next time we see Geralt a horse, he is calling his horse Roach, because that's what the horse dealer said this one was like. 3. Why is it Geralt of Rivia? We already know that Geralt wasn't actually from Rivia, and the of Rivia bit of his name was an attempt to appear more reputable. He said in the novels that, I drew sticks, marked with various grand-sounding names. My Witcher preceptor suggested that method to me, although not initially. Only after I'd insisted on adopting the name Geralt Roger Eric de Haut-Bellegarde. Vesemir thought it was ridiculous, pretentious, and idiotic. I dare say he was right. As fun as it would have been to read the adventures of Geralt Roger Eric de Haut-Bellegarde, I tend to agree with Vesemir here. But now we have a little more of the story, by way of this conversation he had with the Mother Assumpta of the Temple of Melitele. Mother Assumpta? Yes. Somebody lately declared to me that the name Geralt is unrefined. And what if it is? It's still your name. Well, yes, but perhaps I could add something, an of somewhere, like you have, some kind of noble preposition. But you aren't a nobleman, Geralt. Why shine in borrowed feathers? The of something she had that he was so impressed by was of Rivia. It adds another layer to the twist towards the end of the main story arc where he actually is knighted Geralt of Rivia. After all that time he was no longer shining in borrowed feathers, as the Mother Assumpta would say. 4. Who wrote Monstrum? Monstrum, or Description of the Witcher, is one of the most important books or pamphlets in the Witcher world. It was basically a highly effective piece of anti-Witcher propaganda, describing them variously as hideous, contrary to nature, and the offspring of foul sorcery and devilry. I say highly effective because it helped shape the people of the continent's views on witches and led to the sacking of Kaer Morhen and the diminishment of the witches. It was published anonymously, and until now we didn't know who wrote it or why. We do now. The writer was a man called Artemon of Asguth, who was the dean of the Bannard Academy, so a sorcerer. It was written some time after his son, with the wonderfully named Marchioness Servia Hrada Grafia Khan, died in a brawl, killed by an unknown stranger who was rumoured to be a witcher. The pair of them embarked on a lifelong mission to take down witches, hence the publication of Monstrum. Which brings us on to 5, The Origin of Witches. Preston Holt, one of the key characters in Crossroads of Ravens, gives Geralt a detailed history of where witches first came from. He says that the impulse came from the army and warfare. Every military commander dreamed of a unit for special operations, consisting of incredibly physically able, invincible superhumans. Every leader and every self-proclaimed king desired a similar personal guard. Sorcerers, or more precisely, an elite group called at that time the Circle, resolved to satisfy that demand by creating a Superman, which is an improved version of the human species, the first stage of the evolution of an entire species to a level that was superior in every respect. They finally created a mutagen, an anatoxin, a hormone and a virus, everything that was necessary. And of course, they refined the magic formulas and rituals essential for those decoctions to take effect. But when all the loose ends were tied up and the only thing missing was to put it all into practice, one of the sorcerers working on the project stole all the material and fled. Holt goes on to explain a rather messy history that followed, with suspicious deaths, schisms, unexpected dangerous mutations, lost knowledge, and many innocent casualties along the way, until at last the trials of the grasses were stopped, with Geralt being in the last batch. Holt also explains that witches are called witches because they were initially the children of witches, though Geralt finds this hard to believe. 6. What happened in the sack of Kaer Morhen? We've known for a while that in the year 1194, Kaer Morhen was attacked and seriously damaged, but we now know a bit more. Building on some of the earlier points in this video, we now know for sure that this was before Geralt's time, nearly 2 decades before he was born, in fact. And we also know that this was a mob of peasants inspired by reading Monstrum, so manipulated by Artemon of Asguth and the Marchioness. There were around 100 of them, up against just a handful of witches. Only one witcher survived that, Preston Holt, plus Vesemir and Bernjolf, who were somewhere else at the time. The witches defeated the mob, it would appear, by magically joining their powers as they cast signs, something that they shouldn't have been able to do. That is left a bit of a mystery, but what is explained is that the survivors from the mob were rounded up and publicly punished for what they did by the rulers of the day. Not because the rulers particularly loved witches, but because they still needed them, and didn't want people to think that they could get away with unauthorized renegade mob rule. So the witches suffered huge damage, but survived. People remained suspicious of and even hated witches, but Kaer Morhen retained a degree of implicit protection by the crown because the king had come down so strongly on the perpetrators. 7. Other witcher schools. Simply put, we now know that there aren't any. This may come as a surprise to fans of the video games, who have gone heavily on Kaer Morhen being the school of the wolf, and there being several other witcher schools dotted about the land. But Andrzej Sapkowski has confirmed online while promoting the book that a single sentence about some School of the Wolf mysteriously made its way into The Last Wish. I later deemed it unworthy of development and narratively incorrect, even detrimental to the plot. Therefore, later I never included or referenced any Witcher Gryffindors or Slytherins again. Never. However, that one sentence was enough. Adapters, particularly video game people, have clung to the idea with remarkable tenacity and have wonderfully multiplied these Witcher schools. Completely unnecessary. In case you were wondering about the Witcher medallions, Sapkowski has suggested he may explore the link between particular medallions and specific witches in a future book, but it's clear that it's not that Kaer Morhen only gives out wolf medallions, for example. This whole issue is complicated by there seeming to be some defective witches who go by the name of cats, for example, and a few different witcher facilities outside of Kaer Morhen, and a few other nuances, but there are no different training schools with different traditions and so on. Hopefully we will learn more in another book. 8. Geralt and sorceresses. This isn't new information so much as a fun and intriguing Easter egg given Geralt's later interactions with sorceresses. He is told in this story several times by different people to steer clear of sorceresses, to avert his eyes from them, and so on. But the one sorceress he does properly engage with, Vrye, is actually a pretty positive experience for him. She literally saves his life. So we see here the start of Geralt's complex relationship with sorceresses. He has been told they are dangerous, but his experience is good. This undoubtedly shapes his attitude when he finally meets another sorceress in one of the early short stories. And finally, 9. Why Geralt wears a headband. He doesn't really in the video games or the TV show, but in the books, Geralt usually wears a leather headband. Here we find out it is a gift from Neneki. "I have a gift for you," she said, interrupting the long silence. "What is it?" "A band, a headband, with the purpose of hiding that ugly scar on your forehead. A scar like that is conspicuous, by the way. Everybody remembers it. And you, something tells me, would prefer not to be printed in anybody's memory. So wear the headband." So yes, it is to keep his hair out of his eyes, but it is also to cover up a nasty scar that he gains during Crossroads of Ravens. So in this one book, we learn about the origins of Roach's name, Geralt's headband, Geralt's name and age, and some long-awaited information about the nature of witches themselves. Not bad for a short book, and it's a great read too. This isn't a book review per se, but if you're a Witcher fan, I think you'll like it. To be honest, there's so much going on that I could have thrown in a few more bits of new lore into this video, but I had to stop it somewhere. Perhaps I'll include them in a future video. Talking of which, what would you like to see in some future Witcher videos? Let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to see more Witcher videos like this, there's a link to my playlist on the left of your screen now. Or to support this channel, thank you. There's a link to my Patreon page on the right of your screen. Thanks for watching. That's all for this time. I'll see you again soon.